Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Cal Yi, and I combine spiritual wisdom, science, and psychology to help us ascend to the highest level we can during this lifetime. And today we're going to be talking about, are we living in a simulation? Simulation theory is becoming more well known and more popular these days. But what is it? So I'm just going to read a definition here. Simulation theory is a hypothesis that says that what people perceive as reality is actually an advanced hyper-realistic computer simulation, possibly overseen by higher beings. Living in a simulation can be likened to living in a gigantic game of The Sims, where each of us are the characters on the screen. So why is this so improbable for many people? I suppose it comes down to the question of what is real. Many people choose to believe that the only things that are real are what we can perceive with our five senses: sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. But science tells us that our physical eyes, for example, can only perceive a tiny percentage. I think it's 0.35%, not even 1% of the total light spectrum that actually exists. Our physical eyes can only perceive that tiny amount. So clearly, our sense perceptions are not the absolute deterministic measurement of what is real. But many people do still choose to say that. The film The Matrix is probably the best example of a film that explores this theme. And in that movie, the main character was given the option of taking the red pill, which would enable him to see the actual reality beyond the sense perceptions, or to take the blue pill, which would mean that he was still in that ordinary reality and he would continue to live there. And of course, he took the red pill. So basically, if you're going to explore more of what is really here in our wider reality, you have to decide to take the red pill, so to speak. The first thing we can talk about around this theme is our own human development of the technology of virtual reality. It's becoming very, very realistic. I have only experienced it once, about 3 years ago, and it was a pretty primitive version, I think. Um, the figures and the characters that I was encountering they just looked like cubes stacked on top of each other with eyes and movement. But even though I knew that, and that the characters were laughable in their um, primitive design, I still couldn't stop myself from ducking when they came at me. Um, and nowadays, I'm sure that the technology has developed to a far greater level than the one I experienced. And they also have developed haptic technology in line with the virtual reality, where sensors can be put on your body so that you can actually sense the physical knocks and bumps that you would feel in a physical situation. I've also seen videos that were taken in Japan of marine animals such as whales and dolphins seemingly jumping out of the floor, and it looks so realistic. The huge whale jumping out of the floor and the waves and the sea that come out of it. You can see people ducking and trying to get away from from the water and the animals jumping out. So why is it so improbable that this world is a computer simulation when we can see the huge leaps in development just within the last 5 years? Another proof that we can look at to determine whether or not we live in a simulation is that of time slips. I became really obsessed with time slips around 2019, and there are YouTube channels where people who have experienced time slip can send in their account anonymously, and the host of the YouTube channel will read it out so the person can keep their anonymity. The reason they do this is because many of them say that they've never told anyone about it because they're frightened of being called mad or insane, which speaks to how firmly anchored society still is in that sense perceptions determine reality. There are so many of these time slip accounts that obviously there's something to it. Not everyone is making these things up, and the fact that they want to retain their anonymity speaks to the truth of it to some extent. And also, the definition of a time slip is when people suddenly and unexpectedly move forward or backward in time just for a short period. So why do I say that these examples of time slips are proof that we live in a simulation? Well, I suppose going back to the Matrix movie, there's that glitch that is shown with the cat. I think it's a black cat. Neo looks at this cat, it moves in a certain way, does a meow, maybe washes its face, and then he looks away, and then a second later he looks back and it's doing exactly the same thing, walking in from the same place it was before, doing exactly the same movements, exactly the same time. And he realized it's a glitch in the matrix. So these time slips could be a glitch in the matrix. I've thought a lot about what could cause them, and a glitch in a computer program makes the most sense. Some of the people who've reported experiencing time slip are very prominent and credible people, and I'm going to tell you about two of them now. So the first one was experienced and reported by an officer and a pilot, Sir Victor Goddard, who was in the Royal Air Force in England. He'd fought in the First World War and the Second World War, and he'd received so many awards. He'd also been knighted, and so his credibility was very, very high. And he was on a mission flying from England to Scotland, Edinburgh, and staying overnight in Edinburgh and then flying back in the morning. As he was flying there, he flew over a disused airfield, Drem airfield, somewhere in Scotland, and it had been unused for a long time. There was holes in the roof of the hangars. The airstrip was overgrown with grass, and there was cows grazing on, on the airstrip. So he saw this, he was expecting that, and he flew to Edinburgh, stayed overnight, and flew back the next day. On his return trip, he encountered an electrical storm, and he said that he saw this strange yellow light in the sky, and he was engulfed by cloud and really had to battle to keep control of the plane. Initially, he thought he would fly up and above the clouds to get out of the storm, but as he flew up, it intensified. He almost lost control of the aircraft. So then he decided to dive under the clouds to get out of the storm, which he did successfully and came out in blue sky under the clouds. However, he was very close to Drem airfield, and as he flew over it, he saw that it was fully operational. There were no holes in the hangars. All the roofs and the walls looked new, in good repair. The airstrip was mowed, and there were aircraft and mechanics all over the site, which he was completely confused about because the day before it had been it had been in a bad state of disrepair. He noticed that the colour of the aircraft was different from the regulation colour. I think the regulation colour might have been blue and it changed to yellow. Also, the uniforms of the mechanics were not the regulation colour. The regulation colour was brown, I think, and changed to blue. So he flew back to where the base was in England, where he started off from, and he made a report about this. And he was completely ridiculed by all the other officers. But right up until the time of his death, he maintained that this was true. And also, a few years later, Drem Airfield became operational again as a training facility, and the colour of the aircraft and the colour of the uniforms of the mechanics changed to the colours that Sir Victor Goddard had seen during his time slip experience. The second example is from the prominent psychologist Carl Jung, who was the most well-known student of Sigmund Freud. He went to Italy with a friend, and while they were there, I think it was Italy, while they were there, they went into a church that was a historical building, and they, just as tourists, when they were in the church, they went into a basement kind of a room where they found all these beautiful painted frescoes on the walls, and they looked so fresh and vibrant. Jung also said that when they entered the room, they saw this strange blue light, and then they looked at the frescoes, which looked like they'd been painted the week before. The paint was so fresh and vibrant and beautiful that they stayed in there marvelling at these paintings for a long time, and then went on to do the rest of their trip. And when he got back to Germany, he was probably living in at the time, he asked a friend who was going to Italy fairly soon if he could go to that church and see if they had any postcards that he could buy and give to Jung. When he got back, he said that there was no room like that in the church. He looked all around. So I think, I'm not sure of this, but I think Jung might have written to the person who was caretaking the church and asked for postcards. And they also said there is no room like that. But they said there used to be. A long, long time ago, there was a room like that, but the paint had become so damaged that they didn't open it to the public anymore. So these two examples were pretty credible, from credible people, and neither of these people would have anything to gain by making up these stories. In fact, they would have a lot to lose by just making up these stories. So we can pretty much accept that they were telling the truth. And there are many, many accounts like this from police, doctors, nurses, other fairly credible people, but these are two of the best examples. So this video's gone a bit longer than I wanted. I'll do a part 2 on this. I'll speak more about this in the next video because I have more proof about whether we live in a simulation or not. But for now, I wish you all the best wherever you are in the world. Please like and subscribe if you found this interesting. And I wish you love and courage in your journey. And I'll see you next time. Take care and bye for now.